There's a video all about apple trees and different things you may need to know about apple trees if you're thinking of getting some apple trees in your garden. Hello, this is Darren from Grill's Cottage Garden Plants. I'm filming this on the 10th of June 2026, so it's summer. This apple tree we're looking at here is one called Laxtons Epicure. It's an early eaten apple. It came highly recommended by Stephen Hayes, who is an apple tree expert on YouTube. Look him up, Stephen Hayes. I think it's Stephen with a PH. He's got loads of videos. I don't think he really makes videos anymore. I think he's sort of retired from making videos, but well worth a look and listen. So this is one of his recommends. This one is only, I think, a 3 or 4 year old apple tree, and this is the first year. It gave us 1 apple last year, but this year we've left some apples on, a few more apples. So we've got a couple forming there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's 6 there, 7, 8, 9. Looks like the 9 are going to be okay, and they're going to stay on the tree. What I would suggest with a young tree like this, if you get loaded with apples like our sunset, let me show you the sunset. So this sunset had about 50 apples on it. So what I've done, Stephen Hayes recommends this one as well. Can't say enough about Stephen. He's very knowledgeable. So you can see there's lots of little apples on this, but to be honest, before I thinned them out, there was probably easily 50 apples. So we're spacing the apples. So if we've got one there, we want some over here. We don't want some in the middle. You know, you're talking about maybe 4 to 6 inches the cluster apart, and take it down to 2 to 3 apples on a cluster like this one here, 3 on a cluster. 2 to 3 is fine, because if you have 4 or 5 on a cluster, what will happen is you'll end up with lots of small apples. So you're better off thinning it out, which is a good time to do that is early to mid-June. Show you this one. This is Sweet Alford. Sweet Alford is a pure sweet cider apple. This one's 4 years old now. This is my recommend. If you want a pure sweet apple for cider, Sweet Alford, in my opinion, is probably the best that we would choose out of any. Downside is this year there's no fruit on it whatsoever. We had a couple of apples on it last year for the first time, none this year. It's nothing to do with the tree. It's not like it's not a productive tree, because it is normally a productive tree. If we go back to last July, we had a very dry summer through June, July. It barely rained, and what we found is the apple trees which we didn't really water, this one of them has now got no fruit this year. Why? Because in June, July is when the fruit spurs, fruit buds are forming. So it needs that water, it needs that rain, it needs water for those fruit buds to establish. That's the bottom line, and that is why we've got no apples on this tree this year, because it actually didn't water this one last year at all. Just let it be. My mistake. So the lesson learned here is that if we get dry periods now, I'm going to water these with a big can of water once a week. So Sweet Alford, it is a Devon cider apple. I always think, personally, only myself, Somerset and Devon apples is what I would tend to choose. We're in Cornwall, so it's a similar sort of climate. Let's talk about this one. This is a Topaz apple tree. Most of my trees are on what they call an MM106 rootstock, which could potentially grow to maybe 4 meters. And this one is on an M111 rootstock, which probably could go up to 5 meters. So this could be a bigger tree. The growth on it, from the time we've had it from a 2-year-old tree to now being a 4-year-old tree, you can see the difference in the growth compared to the MM106s. When MM106 is good for sort of a medium-sized garden, I wouldn't have an MM111 rootstock if you've got sort of a medium-sized garden. So we've got a few clusters of apples on this one, not too many. Again, it's only a 4-year-old tree. and this is going to be more productive when it gets probably 6-7 years old. So it is very much a long picture, shall we say, before you're going to get decent amounts of fruit. So this one was recommended to me by Tom Nancaro, who runs Adams Apples in Cullumpton in Devon. He's a grower of apple trees and other types of fruit trees, and I went to him and said, this is what I want. I want a late season apple. I want it to keep well. I want it to have slight crunch, but I also want it to be nice sweet apple at the same point. He pointed me in this direction, and it's turning out to be a very good tree, and it's a very nice apple as well from what we found out last year. So Topaz is a very good tree in my opinion. It's quite a modern apple compared to the other apple trees I've showed you so far. This one is more modern. This was in the 1990s, formed in the Czech Republic, so it's not even a UK apple, but it likes it here. You'll find with these apples with the Topaz, they can stay on the tree and they won't drop off until sometime November. So that's a good point, I suppose. These apples will store as well, store into a crate, bit hessian over the top. Some people wrap them in newspaper or something per apple, and they'll keep for quite a few months. So this one's Yarlington Mill. This is a Somerset cider apple. It came highly recommended to me from Stephen Hayes, from YouTube fame. It takes a long time to come into fruit. This is on an MM106 rootstock, so up to 4 meters tall. It's not going to reach that for probably 10 years plus. This is a first year. It's got some apples on it. They're a really good cider apple, and it does normally take quite a while to come into full fruit. What you'll find with a lot of cider apples, that they will be biannual, so look into that when you're choosing cider apples. Yarlington Mill is less likely to be no crop 1 year. It's nearly always going to give you a crop, maybe 7 years out of 10, which is better than, say, Tremlett's Bitter, which is very biannual. Now, if you haven't got much room in your garden and you want to have a potted apple tree, you can. You know, you just got to get the correct rootstock. So get advice from whoever you purchase from your apple tree. I would highly recommend Adams Apples in Cullumpton. Tom Nancaro there that runs it is very knowledgeable. You can ask him any question and he's very forthcoming with answers. So this is a James Grieve. It's a Scottish apple, and it's in a pot, and this is on a potted rootstock. This one is loaded this year with apples because we actually watered the pot every week, and that's why we've got a lot of crops. So just remember, if you get a real dry June, July, water your tree, whole big watering can full of water once a week, and that's going to help your fruit spurs, your fruit buds form for the following year. But yeah, James Grieve's, it's a cooking apple, Scottish, as I said, does very well down here in Cornwall. I don't know if you notice, I've put some props in here, look, because of the weight of these apples. We've got a lot of apples on 2 of the branches, so we've made a little prop with a little V and then a little piece of fabric, just so the fabric's there, so the bark doesn't get rubbed away with the support there. It's just supporting the branch, because as the apples get bigger, that's going to get heavier and you could snap a branch. That's the reason we do it. This is the Bramley. I'm not that, you know, Bramley's a great apple, but it's not something I rave about, to be honest. It's a decent apple. Everyone knows Bramley Seedling, and that one's in the ground, and there's not a lot of apples on that one this year either. I think there's about 5 apples on that one. Again, didn't water that one in June, July. Lesson learned, isn't it? So don't do the same. Obviously, water your apple trees in dry periods. Feeding an apple tree. All I do, and I've done a bit of research into this, is that if you've got access to wood ash, if someone you know that's got a log burner, ask them for a bucket of wood ash. And in March, we would just basically put some wood ash around the base of the tree. That's all we do. They don't really need high nutrients or anything like that. Pruning. I'm in Cornwall, we have wet winters. I don't prune it anymore in spring. Oh, sorry, not in autumn. That's what I should have said. I don't, yeah, don't prune in autumn, because then you've got a cut wound on the tree which is going to be open all winter, getting wet. And I found that I've lost the tree, or Red Windsor, to canker because of that, because the wound was wet and then canker set in. So my take on pruning is I prune in mid to end of March, when the weather is getting warmer and we're getting less rain, and that seems to work better for me, and there's less risk of you getting canker in your tree. If you get canker in your tree, you just want to dig your tree up, to be quite honest, if it gets really bad. Just going to touch on, if you haven't got a lot of room but you've got a fence. This is a Lord Derby, it's a Stockport cooking apple, and you can see the branches are going sideways on this apple tree. So you can actually train an apple tree to actually train sideways. It'll still give you good amounts of fruit, and it tends to work if you've got less space to work with. You can probably see these wires, and then if I go to the end, they're on hooks there. And then what we do is we have what we call bendy wire, and we tie the branches in as they get bigger. So there's a bit of bendy wire there. Look. So it's like a wire covered in a foamy type plastic, and then just tie that in with like figure of 8 as it comes along the actual wire here. All right, that's all you need to do. So even if you don't have a lot of space, you still can have an apple tree if you've got a fence or a wall. Would I recommend a Lord Derby? I probably would, actually. It's a cooking apple again. It's a fairly good cropper, and yeah, I probably would recommend one. If I was going to buy apple trees again, I would probably definitely buy a Lord Derby. It purees down nice, more so than say a Bramley Seedling. So last one I would recommend, I guess, is this one here. This is a Kid's Orange Red. It's New Zealand apple. It's quite old variety. It's not the biggest of apples. You'll always get a really decent crop on this, and they'll store for a little time period of time. They'll sort of be ready maybe early October, and these can keep for at least sort of 6 to 8 weeks, so maybe month to 2 months. They're a lovely tasting apple as well. Not the biggest of apples. They're sort of what you call a lunchbox, I guess, lunchbox size apple. Kid's Orange Red is a very good apple. Again, if you look on YouTube and go to Stephen Hayes's Facebook page, you'll see he's made 2 videos on Kid's Orange Red, showing the quantity of crop that he gets out of the Kid's Orange Reds. And it's tasting it. It's got a nutty taste, but very aromatic apple as well, I would say. So, any questions, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to come back and answer any questions that you may have. And please subscribe if you wish to. Generally, we're making a lot of videos about cottage garden plants and our garden, which includes allotment, fruit trees, and flower borders, and plants that we grow, which generally are cottage garden plants and hardy geraniums. So thanks for watching.